What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White with another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. We love talking O-line on this show. We love talking D-line on this show. We love talking linebackers on this show. I really like talking about the Steelers, full stop. But if we're spinning the wheel, we've hit it. And Joe Devil is in the comments is going to say, why didn't you just spin the actual wheel? Well, Joe Devil, it's because I've created a wheel in my own head. We're talking about linebackers. Shannon, I believe that Patrick Queen, who signed with the Steelers for several $1 million less than signing with other teams, as we heard in an interview with, I think it was Arsenal DB or Steelers DB or whatever, Steelers DB, last week on that show, on that channel. You've heard that Patrick Queen is going to wear the green dot. This is going to be a bit of therapy for you, Mr. White. How does that make you feel?
Not a fan of that idea. I remember when Patrick Queen came out of college, and you just see this guy ooze all this athleticism, this intensity. He was just, like a young stallion that needed broke. You had to kind of reel him back a little bit. He's one of them guys you don't have to say sick them. They're already there. I mean, he's so aggressive. But he's a very instinctual, attack the line of scrimmage type player. And he never quite hit his stride until the Ravens traded for Roquan Smith.
Yep.
And then you've seen them just turn him loose. And Patrick Queen flourished. And so when they were talking about bringing him in, I said, well, there's no way that he would be the green dot because he's a guy, I always call it paralysis by overanalysis. When you give these guys these responsibilities to call out formations and movements and checks and get everybody in the right position prior to every snap, it's like playing center. Center has a multitude of responsibilities pre-snap, whereas most of the guys don't on the offensive line. Same thing for your green dot inside linebacker. And so Patrick Queen, when he had those responsibilities with the Ravens, did not play as instinctively, and there was a hesitation there, and he wasn't as aggressive. You don't want to take away his aggressiveness. When you got a guy like Greg Lloyd was just constantly on attack. You don't want to make him think too much. You just want to let him play ferocious, be instinctive. And that's what they need to do with Patrick Queen. Well, we know that Landon Roberts wore the green dot last year for part of the season after the injuries and did a good job. And he's a seasoned veteran. And the same thing with Peyton Wilson, who I think should be the green dot, because it wouldn't shock me if Peyton Wilson isn't the starter game one, because I just think he's that good. And we know that he was already at rookie camp calling out formations and getting his teammates lined up. So we know he's got that high football IQ. I think by making Patrick Queen the green dot, you're going to hamper and limit his effectiveness, especially at first till they figure it out and take that responsibility away from him.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things to unpack there is if I think about one of the other shows that we did over the weekend where we talked about Frazier, if you're not going to start Frazier, then you can't start Peyton Wilson in my book because you set the scene there. And people will say they're different positions, different players, one's offense, one defense, but that's the reality. That, fair's fair. Or if you're not even going to start Broderick Jones based on one of our segments. Right. Just to rev it up. Landon Roberts wore the green dot a lot last year. I'm wondering whether this is an experimental thing in camp to know whether Patrick Queen can wear the green dot at all. But I do agree with you, and particularly because perhaps it might be, even if Peyton Wilson's doing really well right now calling the formations, perhaps they're like, we need to let him play a game or two before he can wear the green dot. And so if we're going to start Wilson, so the argument is if we're going to start Wilson, let's give it to Queen to might not be ideal, but we're going to give it to Queen for a couple of games while we let Peyton work that rotation in and some consistency on the defense. But to me, it's the problem like if Minka was to wear the green dot, right? The problem to me is that, as you said about Patrick Queen, I think about it like this. I compare a lot of things of football to military, right?
Mhm.
You want Patrick Queen being the missile that goes and blows something up, not the management system. That you're not the bloke pressing the button, right? Like, let someone else press the button. Let Patrick Queen freaking go blow them up, right? And then if something comes back the other way, then the bloke pushing the button can push another button and deal with the thing that comes at the naval ship, using that analogy. But I don't want Patrick Queen pressing the button. I want Patrick Queen being the missile, right? And that's how I'm going to look at it. So I do completely agree with you there, because as I said a couple of weeks back when we were talking about the linebackers, to me, or maybe it was when we reacted to the Peyton Wilson pick for the draft, because that was, in recent times. To me, they got themselves a young Roquan Smith in Peyton Wilson. And we saw last year when Patrick Queen was able to just go make a play, let the other guy do the work. We saw the benefit of that. And that's what I loved about the Peyton Wilson pick, because she just got a similar type of player as Roquan Smith.
Yep.
Now, that's a big thing to say. If he can live up to Roquan Smith, great. If he can live up to 80% of Roquan Smith, great. He's got the athleticism to do that. We've now got to see it on the field. We've seen plenty of blokes show out athleticism, but his tape is a human highlight reel. So, we'll go with that. I guess drawing the bigger point that I think I've alluded to, it kind of comes to me down to a little bit like, do we trust the Steelers to get it right at the linebacker position? And so I'm going to pose that question to you, because we've obviously got some new coaches in the mix over the last couple of years at the linebacker spot and on the defense. Do you trust them to get it right either way?
Well, I had a guy, I was discussing this topic, and he said, well, the reason they want Patrick Queen to have the green dot is because he's going to be out there all three downs, whereas Landon Roberts will have to come off the field. But if you remember, Landon Roberts, when he was forced to be a coverage guy last year, did a decent job.
He did.
Yeah. He did. I was really shocked. That was some of the best coverage I'd ever seen in his career. But if you look at it, I would rather have Peyton Wilson wear the green dot. And when Cole Holcomb comes back, I wrote an article last year, Cole Holcomb ain't afraid of no little green dot.
Yes, Cole Holcomb is the best green dot person on the roster. He's the best green dot.
He was perfect for it. He done great. And he had solidified that prior to his injury.
I remember that article.
Prior to his injury. So when he comes back, good Lord willing, he could be the backup, and him and Wilson can wear that green dot, and it doesn't affect them. Then have Roberts back up Queen, more of that at the buck position, buck linebacker.
Yeah.
And then if they got anybody behind them, I don't know how many inside linebackers they'll keep. But what I'm saying is, I think that they're making a mistake. I understand that Queen, you want him out there all three downs, but he is good at coverage. But again, all that decisions pre-snap affects some guys. And I think it negatively affected him in the past. And I don't think that he'll ever be that type of player that he can handle that without it affecting his aggressiveness.
Yeah, it is an interesting situation that they find themselves in. Because, it's never the ideal scenario, but the ideal scenario is that Cole Holcomb would be fit and you work Peyton Wilson in and let him, you can do some super exotic things if you have all four of those guys fit. There's some
and
awesome
it looks
things.
like that Holcomb is probably going to miss a portion, maybe the first 6 games. During that time, Quan Alexander's looking really good in his rehab. You could bring him in. He knows it already. He knows the defense.
Yeah.
And you're going to have an incredibly deep and talented inside linebacker position.
Well, you also got Kyron Johnson. Like, people should not sleep on Kyron Johnson.
When Holcomb does come back. So, you're going to have some guys on the practice squad that would have been playing last year.
Oh, 100%. if you ask me to pick a roster tomorrow, I'm picking Kyron Johnson over Mark Robinson every single time. I'll be straight. I'm pretty much done with Mark Robinson, in my perspective. I don't think I'm not sure that's ever going to turn out to be anything. I don't see it.
My problem is I'm not as high on him as I was. Obviously, I can handle all out aggression. If he's coming in and he's just blowing people up, even if it's just the lead blocker, and then he blows him up and doesn't even attempt the tackle.
Yeah.
Some guys as they're learning, but one thing it should always be there. If you're the type player that Mark Robertson is, that aggressiveness has to be there. That physicality has to be there. And there was too many times last year that he took no steps forward, or he took a couple of pity pat steps forward and let the play come to him, and then he made the tackle. And that shows me that he's not confident enough to aggressively attack the play. I don't think it's a physicality problem with him. I think it's above the shoulders. I think he doesn't trust what he sees, and he has not played enough to develop the confidence. And if he doesn't do it this year, I think he's done.
Yeah.
He's going to have a big training camp in preseason.
Oh, 100%. He's
going to show that he is there. And I just don't know if he's going to be.
No, I can't. I can't see it, to be honest. I was just pulling out some free agents as well. There's not a lot there.
They get Quan. They don't need nobody else.
I mean, do you take a punt on Shaquille Leonard?
No.
I know. I don't see it. I don't see it.
He was a little bit of a. Usually, defensive players are not dramatic unless they are, usually your cornerbacks. They're kind of dramatic, but most of your other guys, if anything, it's because they're, overly aggressive, things they say, to spark for a big rivalry game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But some of his off the field stuff was real unusual.
Oh, yeah.
And then he wanted to change his name after he'd been called this, and he wanted to be called Shaquille. And I mean, it was just, there was like a lot of, and this is while he was going through all them injuries after signing that big contract. And I'm thinking, why aren't you focusing on rehabbing and getting back to the player you was? You're worried about what name they call you.
It's all about the. I'm not going to make that. I won't finish that sentence.
Yeah.
Zach Cunningham is available though as well. You could do worse for a depth piece, but yeah, I mean, I love the four. I love the four of Holcomb, Payton, Queen, and Orlando Roberts. I think that's a huge, because there's the other thing too is like. I'm not convinced that Herbig can't still play inside if you had to play him there, particularly on sub package. I still think we need to see something there. So that's.
I think they're fully committed to him being an edge.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying in sub package you could.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the thing. The Steelers now have 7 blokes across inside and outside linebacker that are bona fide, like proper starting quality caliber players. I don't remember a time in the last decade that's been the case.
This could be the deepest, I ain't saying the best, but the deepest linebacker core that they've had in ever.
Do you think the Queen, over the course of his 3-year contract, I think, can outplay the way Shazier played? I know, again, that's a very controversial question. But Shazier was also a rookie, to be fair.
Well, we talked about this today, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I get a lot of flack, but being really, really honest. And Shazier was a very good player, but He was not a great player. He was not a defensive player of the year candidate type player. I mean, people make him out that he was going to be a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame, and he was going to do all this stuff if he hadn't got injured. He was in the midst of his best season when he got hurt.
Yep.
Now, I wrote an article saying that if he didn't stop that torpedo tackling, lowering his head that he was going to get hurt. And
Well, I
then
will
he
tell
goes,
you, as someone that has been taught since they were
Yes.
5 years old, your head is always up through a tackle. You look through and drive through. Like you.
I
never
wrote the
put your head down.
article. In the article, I said, watch Jack Lambert. Jack Lambert always saw what he hit.
Yep.
His head was up, and he would hit, and he looked like a condor. He had them long arms, and he'd wrap them, the forearms, and he would wrap around, and he was the perfect form tackler. And I said, that's what Shazier needs to do. Because when you drop your head, even if you don't get injured, you're apt to miss the tackle. You bounce off, and because you're not wrapping up properly.
Correct.
It looks great, and sometimes it's a huge hit, but the danger's there. But to me, Shazier, his legend is much that he was much better than he really was, and I was a huge Shazier fan. So I'm hoping that Patrick Queen can reach that level if he isn't there already and surpass it.
I mean, I say that as well as like I'm probably someone in not the middle. I'm probably on the scale closer to your side of things. I do think that Shazier hadn't hit his ceiling though. Is basically what I'm saying. I think that there was
Yeah,
development.
but how many years was that?
4, wasn't it? I don't think he got injured in the
I think it
fifth
was.
year.
I think it was in the 4th year when he got hurt.
Yeah, but that Steelers defense, like
they built it around him. He was the key component.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in the
defense,
first,
his speed and his mobility, that was the key for that whole defense. That's why when he got hurt, it was over.
no,
The defense couldn't function.
totally. But they might have built it around him. But some of the people that they put around him, like, we can do some questionable things, and I can question the Steelers' defensive player acquisition when they signed John Bostic. I mean, that was
that was terrible. That was terrible. And I mean, I agree, but all I'm saying is, I think that Shazier's legend is bigger and better than he ever really was. And it's easy to do that because of what happened.
Yeah.
And I think he could have been really good, but I just don't know how much more higher he would have went. I don't know what he was getting close to his ceiling.
Okay. Well, here's a question then. Flip it back. If Patrick Queen does play lights out, which we're all hoping, or above what we're even expecting, and let's say the Steelers win an AFC championship game, is Patrick Queen on course for a Hall of Fame career? He's got a pretty good winning record throughout his career so far.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything that yet that I would say, oh, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But he also has been. But
could he?
He's had Pro Bowl season,
yeah,
and been on that level or Pro Bowl alternate, and in the right defense, which the Steelers defense might be the right defense, his game could still go up another level, and then that would definitely be a consideration.
I love that. Well, as Mike Tomlin said when they got him, he was like, "This guy's coming to the end of his rookie deal." As a coach, the guy's like 20. I think he's 24 right now. But Tomlin was like, "As a coach, I expect to help him reach his potential. I expect him to get better. I don't expect that what you'll see is is the floor, or is the ceiling. Sorry, it's the floor." Excellent. Well, that was fun. I love talking linebackers with you. But that's going to wrap up this episode, I should say, of the Steelers Global Perspective. But you let us know in the comments, what do you think about Patrick Queen? What do you think about the whole green dot? Who should wear the Steelers green dot? And what scenario should they wear the green dot? Let us know in the comments. I'm Matty P with Shannon White. As always, go Steelers.